The Atlanta Braves have the best record in baseball and look like a World Series contender. We bring in one of the Braves' newest beat writers to talk more about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, a production of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, author of the Braves Today newsletter over at bravestoday.com, and really excited to be joined by a much more accomplished writer than me, the newest Braves beat writer, Jesús Cano of The Athletic. Thanks for taking some time. Welcome to the beat and welcome to Braves Today.
Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you having me, man. You do some really good stuff, like pro wrestling. So, I mean, it was a really good fit to be able to come on here. So I appreciate the invite.
We're going to get a little bit of a chat about that towards the end of the show there. But before we do that, I want to get your pick your brain a little bit, because you have this really interesting scenario of you came into the team during the season, right? Well, not super deep in the season, but into the season. And so you got to pick up partway through. And I'm curious, when you joined the team, I believe it was on that West Coast road trip is when you first were able to link up and officially start your games and everything. What was the overall kind of vibes when you first met the guys and got a chance to go in the clubhouse and talk to the players about the 26th season and about how things were going?
Well, I'll tell you this. So before this, I was at Baseball America, so it was a little bit different than what I'm doing right now. But in 2023, 2024, I was working at MLB.com, filling in for a bunch of beat reporters who didn't want to come to Arizona in the 115-degree heat during the summer, which is understandable, right?
Yeah, I get that.
During that time, I actually got the opportunity to go into a lot of different clubhouses. Like, I think I covered maybe 12 to 14 different teams if we include spring training, maybe 16, 17. So I think from an early stage, like, I was able to feel that there was a different vibe to each clubhouse. And the Braves was actually a team that I never filled in for Mark Bowman. He, toughed it out and came to Arizona. They also happened to come when it was relatively cool in Arizona summer retrospect. But the moment I entered the Braves clubhouse, like, you could feel like there was just immediately good vibes. There's been times I've been into other clubhouses, I'm not going to say which ones, where you come in and you're like, ooh, I feel the tension in here. Like, you can be there within 5 seconds, you feel the tension, you feel something off. You can see guys not talking to each other. Like, something's up. Here, it was the exact opposite. Like, the moment I walked in, road clubhouse is a lot different than the visiting clubhouse. In the home clubhouses, so it's a much different vibe. Because they don't know where to go for most of the cases there. Like, it just felt really good right away. Like, I was able to interact with a lot of the guys. A lot of the players are very welcoming. A lot of them congratulated me for getting the position, and I think it's kind of been that case every single step of the way. Like, I think coming into my position, I'm very fortunate that the Braves are playing as well as they are, because it makes the job a little bit easier. With that being said, too, like, there's some really good attitudes throughout the entire team. Like, in talking to a bunch of different players, each one of them told me, and some of them are pretty transparent with this. There's no bad attitudes on the team. Everybody's a good guy. And I was even talking to this with Jorge Mateo during the past series in Cincinnati. So I asked him, I was like, have you ever been around a clubhouse where there is so much chemistry that even the Latin guys and the English speaking guys, like, get along and talk really well and then, like, are united as one? Because they tend to separate in cliques and stuff like that there. He said, no, this is the first time I've ever experienced something like this. Like, it makes coming into work, coming in and to play, a really good experience. And I think you can kind of see it in the way they transpire on the field. Like, a lot of people don't understand the importance of clubhouse chemistry and that how that translates into results on the field. So it's been a really good clubhouse to be navigating, especially, 1 month, officially 1 month into the job now.
Yeah. And I know that the Braves have always kind of valued the clubhouse chemistry. And that's something Alex Anthopoulos has always talked about, that they do a lot of the background work on those guys. It does feel like this one's a little bit different than usual, and I guess in a good way. You wrote a piece on, I think it was Tuesday, about Dom Smith and how he's kind of come into the season. It's a different role. And to me, a lot of what you just talked about with the clubhouse, I could kind of see that in the Dom Smith piece about how, like, hey, he wasn't guaranteed a role when he got here, but he's taking advantage of the opportunity. But also he's happy being here with whatever role he gets, because it's a great place to work. It's nice guys to be around. And overall, it's kind of a feeling of the organization treating the guys as well as possible. Has that been, I know it's pretty much like a universal sentiment at this point, but I almost feel like that's kind of the core competency of the Atlanta Braves, is the fact that that clubhouse is so good and that everybody is so close and that there is no bad actors, no bad personalities, no conflict. You mentioned it was unique. Am I wrong for thinking that they're probably the best in the league at making sure that they have that all the time in the clubhouse?
Yeah, and the only other organization that I can really think that comes to mind are, surprisingly the No City A's. Like that's they do a really good job, finding guys. But the Braves, specifically, like, are also able to put up guys who, for one, make a lot of money. They have a pretty high payroll. Guys like Matt Olson. Matt Olson isn't the loudest guy, but he leads by example. He has that kind of similar Dom Smith presence, but obviously with the better numbers, shows up. To work every single day, man, every single day. Not to say Dom doesn't at all, but like we're just talking about specifically about Olson, Acuña, on the Spanish speaking side. He's a really good guy. Really, goes out of his way to kind of make everybody feel welcome too. Like a lot of the Spanish speaking guys, like you can see them gravitate towards him. Ozzy, like that's the thing. And then you mentioned Dom Smith. For every Dom Smith, there's a Mauricio Dubon, there's a Mike Yastrzemski, there's an Eli White, and even down in the bullpen, Dylan Lee, does a good job of interacting with both groups and stuff like that. Like it's been a really good clubhouse to be around, and I think that's why you see so much success. And like you mentioned it, I've only been in the organization covering the organization for about a month. But when I talk to Walt, when I talk to different coaching staff, when I talk to people who worked for a team for the Wild, they emphasize the amount of research that goes into making sure that there's good makeup that'll only make the clubhouse chemistry even better. And I think that's why you're seeing such a good result right now.
Yeah. You touched on Ronald and, and kind of like the leadership role he has there in the clubhouse and how folks gravitate towards him. I imagine that his early season struggles, and I'm using struggles relatively, it's a struggle for Ronald Acuña Jr. based on what he can do now. Did he address kind of what was going on and some of the issues that he had early in the year? I know that we noticed, some mechanical changes with his stance. He had opened it up a lot. He closed off some of that. But one, it seems like his personality was the same all the way through. Did he address what was going on early in the year and how he's hot right now?
I think it comes down to timing from what a couple of people that I've talked that worked with him closely throughout this thing. It just comes down to timing. It just comes down to also getting hot at the right time. It seemed like things were starting to pick up a little bit right before he went with the hamstring injury. But I also think, the hamstring injury, he told us he felt good like after the third or fourth day. And I think that time really allowed him to just work on stuff in the cages, working on his timing a little bit better without the pressure. At that point, he still had like a week and a half on the IL. And I think that just allowed him to just really all right, let's put performance numbers on the back burner for now. Continue to be the same guy, which he was. He was the same guy, throughout when I saw him in LA, back home at the clubhouse at the Braves, and then for a portion of the trip in Miami before he was activated, right? Yeah. So I think that's just what it came down to. It's like he mentioned to me too, like the home run is a hit that gives you immediate confidence, man. And I think there is no better way to do it than bases loaded over the Green Monster at Fenway Park against the Boston Red Sox. a hit like that obviously did give him plenty of confidence, as we saw through the ensuing weekend. And I think once you get that confidence back, whether it's, a hitter, getting the hit that they really needed, or a pitcher getting an outed that they really needed, you're able to build off of it right now. And I think he's really feeling that right now too.
Yeah. You mentioned the confidence. I feel like a lot of fans sometimes forget how tough this game of baseball is and how confidence is such a big deal. A guy who's playing with a ton of confidence right now, Jorge Mateo. He's pretty much, it went from a day by day kind of situation, if I had Walt Weiss's quote there correct, to he's pretty much taken the bulk of the playing time. And I know they're working with Ha-Seong Kim off the field in the cages, trying to get him going. Given the fact the lead is so big right now, right? You're 21 games over 500 as of time of recording. It feels like you have the runway to let Ha-Seong Kim figure it out and get going. Are they balancing this right, in your opinion? Is this something where, like, hey, focus on building the lead as big as possible and work with Ha-Seong Kim off the field? Or do they need to just find other ways to get Mateo involved and let Kim play every day to get going?
I think the bottom line right now is, as long as the position's available right now, I think the lineup has been much better with Jorge Mateo in it, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say, I think the most important thing we need to remember is Ha-Seong Kim has missed 2 spring trainings, not just one, but 2 spring trainings, right? And in talking to a couple other people, within the team, that's just, for one, it's so tough to be able to come back, within the limited rehab assignment that he had. And then also just, like the spring training numbers kind of really don't matter. Like because that's when you can tinker, that's when you can experiment, and you don't have to worry about, driving in runs on a random.
You can build confidence in spring.
Exactly. Because you don't have to worry about the numbers. All that matters is, like that you're hitting the ball well, and that eventually those stuff will come, For him, if we're looking at his numbers right now, if spring training starts like late February, this would be maybe 2nd or 3rd week of March for him. And even then, there's still plenty of time to address different things, and he wouldn't be feeling the pressure he feels right now. But then there's cases where, I can see and I can totally understand, like he comes in with a plan of stuff that he's been working through. It doesn't work in the first at bat, and he's like, well, dang, I missed out on my opportunity. I got to, and then the game plan evaporates, and he has to go because he feels the pressure to be able to what's it called, put on right away, as he should, because it was really good. They held it really well, other people around him. And you're also at the same time, it's a day-to-day shortstop situation. That means there's no starter, according, I would assume that's what day-to-day means, that there's no starter, right? So you're also fighting for a position that you clearly at the moment right now aren't, within grasp of it, So I think they're approaching it as best as they can. I think it's such a unique circumstance, and there's a lot of factors that go into the pressure. He's making $20 million. Like if somebody, if the Athletic, ever invested that much money, I would feel pressure every single day to perform and make sure every story I write is a banger,
No typos. Yeah,
exactly. So I can totally feel the pressure for him on that end and on that front, right? So I think they're doing the best they can, I think, but I also think Walt is proving a point in the sense that he's going to put the best lineup every night, regardless of where the team's at, regardless how big of the lead is, regardless of who makes more money. I think that's something really good to see because, there's no playing favorites or anything like that. There isn't like a forced hand just because, there's a lot of investment into Kim. Like he's putting out a lineup that he feels like can put him in a position to win. And I don't know about you, but I think that lineups that he's been putting out there have definitely put him, well above 500, to where they're at right now.
Yeah, it's definitely worked. It's kind of hard to argue with pretty much any lineup he's put out so far. And I do think to that same point, Kim's feeling the pressure of the money that he's making. We have to remember this is also a free agent year for him. And so, he wanted a long-term deal, and because of the shoulder injury and how last season when he didn't get it. And so he's probably feeling the pressure of, hey, I'm trying to get that worked out as well. Before we take a quick break, I know that Drake Baldwin is kind of the guy that everybody's been missing right now. He looked like legitimately an MVP candidate, best offensive catcher in baseball before he went down. What has Walt Weiss said about kind of a basic time frame or their thoughts on when he might come back or how he's doing amid the oblique strain?
Yeah, so we saw him in the clubhouse yesterday, but he was in and out. And so, the next time he's supposed to come back within the homestand is supposed to be the 16th through the 21st. That's, I think, the most optimistic standpoint. I wouldn't say that's like a hard date or anything, but that would be like best case scenario. But that could also mean the beginning of the week. That also could mean the end of the week. That also could mean maybe it doesn't happen and he ends up doing when the next time they're on the road, which I believe is the San Diego, San Francisco trip that they have right there. So, that's really it's funny because we talk about like the Braves, how good they are. And I feel like I always have to repeat this on every single podcast that I'm on, is that they're a very good team and they haven't been at full health this entire season. And I think right now the only guy, they're missing Sean Murphy too, but Drake Baldwin was the difference maker. When Acuña went down, he was holding out that, that leadoff spot, and did such a good job at the top, like you said, was putting MVP caliber numbers at the time. And then you get the Acuña that we're seeing right now. You put, Baldwin at the number 2 slot, then Matt Olson, and then however way that, Walt wants to construct the lineup. And it's a pretty dangerous lineup, because as fortunate as the Braves have been with the fact that they've been able to have guys in the system, catching guys like Sandy Leon and Chadwick Trump, who have, just really good familiarity in the way with the pitching staff, calling games, especially Sandy Leon. Like Chris Sale told us that Sandy, helped him through that last start in Boston. Yesterday it was Bryce Elder who told us, that he was a big catalyst behind, why he was able to go deep into the games. But at the same time, I feel like that can only go for so long because there's just no offensive production coming from that position. Like, yeah, Trump had the walk-off hit, but like what else has come out of that production? Like it's almost like a guaranteed out, and it's unfortunate. It's just the way the cards are played. Like beggars can't be choosers, especially in this situation where there really isn't a lot of catching depth for being able to do. So I think the sooner that Baldwin comes back, I mean, the sooner the better. Same thing with Murphy. I feel like a lot of people were giving him flack for the rough start that he had, but also no spring training. A lot of stuff that got into play, and obviously unfortunate with the injuries. But also, Sean Murphy's been a Gold Glove winner. Sean Murphy's been an All-Star, and that's just a really good bat to have. But I think they'll also make the lineup a little bit more complex if those two guys come in, because both of those bats are dangerous. Obviously somebody's going to have to be the starting catcher, and I feel like we know what direction that's going in based on the numbers that were happening. So, I mean, you really only have a DH spot that the flex in, and you have guys who have filled in, whether it's been Mateo's been in there, when they ever want to have Kim in the lineup, Dominic Smith. You could even put Doobie there. You could put Yaz there. You could put a lot of different options there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the lineup is constructed, and if there's a more consistent lineup going forward, just because there's been so many different variations due to the injuries and due to matchups. But I think those are all good problems to have for the Braves compared to the problems they had last year.
Yeah, you'd rather have too many options than not enough. I mean, it's clearly how it is. All right. Speaking of not enough options of what happened last year, in just a minute, I want to talk about the pitching, because we've gotten some really surprising contributions out of guys that maybe we weren't expecting. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. But first, this episode's brought to you by our friends at IQ Bar, our exclusive snack, hydration, and coffee sponsor. IQ Bar protein bars, IQ Mix hydration mixes, and IQ Joe mushroom-infused coffees are the tasty, low-sugar brain and body fuel that you need to win your day. The Ultimate Sampler Pack's a great way to try all of the IQ Bar products and flavors. You get 9 IQ bars, 8 IQ Mix sticks, and 4 IQ Joe sticks. And all IQ Bar products are clean label certified and entirely free from gluten, dairy, soy, GMOs, and artificial ingredients. With over 20,000 5-star reviews and counting, more people than ever are fueling their busy lifestyles with IQ Bar's brain and body boosting bars, hydration mixes, and mushroom-infused coffees. And the Ultimate Sampler Pack includes all 3. Right now, IQ Bar is offering Braves Today listeners 20% off of all IQ Bar products, including the Ultimate Sampler Pack, plus free shipping. To get your 20% off, text MLB to 64,000. That's MLB to 64000. That's MLB to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby, Jesus Cano of The Athletic. I think one of the big stories on the pitching staff, outside of just how solid the rotation's been despite all the injuries, has been Didier Fuentes. I remember asking AA, I think it was around the winter meetings in one of the Zoom press conferences that he had, talking about why the Braves don't use starters in relief more. Starting pitching prospects in relief. And he said it really has just come down to they try to build the best rotation they can, and they want to get those guys reps from a development standpoint. But Didier Fuentes has been in the bullpen, has been fantastic. And I know he's mentioned before working with Raisel Iglesias and Robert Suarez, having those veterans there to kind of mentor him. What have you seen in the month you've been with the team about how they work with him and kind of what he said about working in the bullpen versus as a starter?
Well, it's not just, I would say, Iggy and Suarez. It's also a big guy that's been, a factor for him that he's mentioned to me on a couple different occasions has been Cookie Carrasco. I mean, they spent time together down in AAA. I know he's taken the shuttle up and down multiple times. But he's a guy
the Jesse Chavez DFA role. Yeah,
exactly. So he has been a guy that has just had such a great influence on him. Same thing with Martín Pérez. Like Martín Pérez, I had a conversation about Didier and telling him to remain patient. Like Didier does not have any experience, pitching out of the bullpen before this season. It's something that was new to him, and doing it for the first time in his major league career. And, but that could be tough, especially when you're doing something that you're not accustomed to doing. But, I mean, I think it's been the best possible option right now for a couple of reasons. One, the rotation is pretty set, even with Perez and Grant Holmes on the back end. Those guys have an experience where you can count them to go second time through the order. I think for Fuentes specifically, we got to remember that he's very, very young. I mean, I've mentioned this in the past multiple times, pitching in major league games, but cannot buy a beer at the concourse or get into many of the clubs at the Battery. And he's still able to put up the numbers. But I think the biggest thing that this is helping Fuentes with is, yes, it's stretching him out, but I think it's allowing him to work a little bit on his secondaries a little bit more, because he relies so heavy on that fastball. And, you can't blame him. I mean, when it touches 100 miles per hour, sits 98, 99, and is able to get whiffs, that's a pitch that you can consistently throw through if you're going to 1 to 2 any worse in the relief. But I think at times, and we can see this, like the secondaries have been hard for him to locate. They haven't had the best shapes. And I think if he wants to become a starter, he's going to really need to hone in on all that stuff to be able to go second or a third time through the order. And I think that's the bottom line when it comes to it. I think luckily in those relief appearances, it gives him the ability to tinker a little bit. Given, now he's been like a lot of high leverage roles, so he has to be a little bit smarter with his pitch selection. But I think, Walt has mentioned this in the past, that it's kind of a lost art, a lost blueprint of, developing guys in the bullpen and then eventually putting them in the rotation. I can't think of, pitchers as of late that have been able to do that. Like, I think Chris Sale might have done that when he first got called up.
Yeah, Sale when he first got called up after getting drafted. And then in Braves history, Spencer Strider in 22 and Max Fried in the 2010s. I think it's 18 maybe. Yeah. He was in the bullpen first. Yeah.
So it's a good position for him to be in, because he's still, learning how to pitch, in major league games. There's still room for him to develop, obviously, if they wanted to in Gwinnett, but I think there's no better way to learn how to pitch in the majors than pitching in the majors. So I think that they've done the best that they can right there. And, I think there's I think the other thing too is, like, they're still waiting on a couple of guys to come off the IL that are going to come into the rotation. I think that's going to be interesting. I think there's no need to pressure. If you feel confident enough to have him here and this is the best role for him, I think this is the most ideal for him. He's not a 24, 25-year-old guy who has been seasoned in different areas and stuff like that. I mean, he's still 20. I think he turns 21 this month or next month. Like
June 17th. I'm curious to see if they give him the beer in the clubhouse after the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was really good stuff from him. The other thing about Fuentes too, like, very mature, very serious about it. Like, whenever I see him warming up, like, or he's tossing in the outfield, like, he's talking to Martin, he's talking to Iggy, he's talking to Suarez, like, I think that's really helped him a lot. I look at the conversation that I had with Martin Perez, and he had a lot of guys early on in his career that helped him out, and they're giving back to him. Maybe that'll be Fuentes down the road, but a lot of people are really excited about Fuentes.
Yeah. And speaking of Perez, I know that we saw Alex Anthopoulos mention him directly on Sunday when he did that interview with Brandon Gaudin on Braves Vision, just kind of how he's been such a big part of what we've done this year, along with Mauricio Dubon. What has Martin said about the whole coming in on a minor league deal and, being a reliever, being a starter, and kind of moving around? I know that can be tough sometimes on guys, especially veterans who have been starters for a long time and have been pretty accomplished in their careers. Is the clubhouse stuff that we talked about, is that kind of helping a little bit with some of the uncertainty he faced earlier in the season?
I'm sure it wasn't something he was accustomed at the beginning of the season, but I wasn't around, so I can't really touch on that. But I will say, I think at this point, he understands his role. I think he's happy to get a decent amount of more starts in right now, compared to what he was doing before, and have a little bit more consistency. But I think he understands that, the position he's in, like, he is, and not a lot of pitchers with his velocity are able to stick around in the game for as long as he's had. True. I think he understands the role that he's in. He's playing for a good team. It's not like they're doing this to him while he's on a team, that is, last place, just abysmal season or anything like that. He understands that it's, at the end of the day, it's a good position for them to be able to, to be able to succeed. And I think he sees that. And I think at the same time, too, he sees that he needs to be an example for a lot of the younger land guys who, like Fuentes, that, obviously very young into their career, but he's done it. He's kind of paved the way for a lot of these guys, to have a long career with a bunch of different teams, and also have different career renaissances throughout, it seems like every year he does well enough to be like, oh, Mark, whenever I'm on the road and Martin's starting, a lot of people are like, I didn't know Martin Perez was still playing in the league. I'm like, yeah, he's doing a pretty good job about it, Yeah,
so he's playing and he's good. Yeah.
And that's another guy where I think, like, there's going to be a lot of flexibility when the rotation, goes back to, whether it's, they have people who have been on the injured list come back, or if they make any acquisitions at the trade deadline. I think I can see Perez or Holmes in this case too kind of move back to the bullpen. And I think that gives, an option or two of really good players that will be able to solidify that as you get into the season and stuff like that. And most anything, it's like very important for playoffs. Because as we've seen, like I feel like, the pitching is what wins you in the playoffs. You look at the Dodgers lineup, they have a great lineup, but you look at that pitching staff is what truly was able to set them the edge, because there's no leeway to hope a guy gives you 5 or 6 innings. Like if he's not doing good in the third inning, they're getting pulled out. And you need to be able to have guys, who can go for a couple innings, i.e. Fuentes, Perez, and Holmes, like
Lopez. Yeah.
Let's do it. Like that's a really good problem right now. That's a really good thing that the Braves have going on for them right now.
Yeah, this is a kind of a unique construction for Atlanta, I feel like, with so many guys who can be relievers, who could start, who could give you length, that are available like this. They don't typically set the bullpen up like that. You kind of mentioned, you kind of touched on this a little bit when you talked about Cookie Carrasco and some of the role. I was going to ask you, like, what pitcher are we not talking enough about? Like the guys that you hear a lot about, in the clubhouse, or when talking to players that are mentioned that maybe aren't the stars, like your Chris Sale, who's leading the rotation. Sounds like Cookie's a big guy there, but who else are we maybe not hearing enough about as fans that have been pretty instrumental for Atlanta this season, like from the pitching staff?
I think it has to be Dylan Lee. I think Dylan Lee has, the way that he's become essentially from like going from a release guy in the Marlins system who went about 2 years without playing because of the pandemic to, now just becoming a reliable reliever out of the bullpen, no matter the splits, no matter the situation or anything like that. What's my cat doing? Is my cat being bad?
Your cat. Hey, listen, animals are welcome on this pod. Bandit's back here behind me. I have a dog. Bandit, don't look at the screen right now. Listen, the viewers are going to love your cat. What's the cat's name? The viewers are going to know.
Zoe, you want to say hi?
Zoe. Hi, Zoe. Thank you for joining the show. This is all staying in, by the way. None of this is being cut. This is all staying in. Okay, good. Yeah, all staying in.
There we go.
Yeah.
What were we talking about? We were talking about
Dylan Lee. He gets cut by Miami, released out of the minors. AA mentions this all the time about like this, why they claim so many guys. If they can find another Dylan Lee, then all of those claims were worth it to find another Dylan Lee. But you even mentioned he bridges well between the native English speakers and the Latin American guys.
Yeah, he grew up he also went to Fresno State, but he grew up about,
That's the real reason you like him so much. That makes sense. Okay.
Well, he grew up about 30 minutes from Fresno in a community called Dinuba, California, which is a big farming community, and there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people there. A lot of people of Mexican descent, and I can see the way he interacts with people, how that all comes into play and stuff like that. But at the same time, like you've seen, he's like the first guy out of the pen. Like I think if there's ever a game within reach and you need a guy in the 6th or the 7th, I think he's become the guy to be able to do that regardless of the splits, because he's been able to pitch so well, has really been able to come into his own, has a lot of confidence, and also is just a really good clubhouse guy. Like overall, like I mentioned, he'll interact with everybody. He'll even interact directly with Ha-Seong Kim. Like he is a guy I think that is very instrumental in that clubhouse too. And kind of a silent leader within like some of the other guys. But I think just, I think he's a guy like you hear about Iggy, you hear about Suarez being one too. I think those guys are, top into consideration for to be in the All-Star game this year. I think Dylan Lee should be in that same breath too, just because of the way he's been able to do it. What happens, obviously that's up to the players, who decide who gets in. But he's been just rock solid for them throughout the entire year. And I think another guy too that, I think a lot of fans like to trash on is Grant Holmes. Like, I think people need to understand that Grant Holmes is doing what Grant Holmes is supposed to do. Like, he's not a guy that's going to go out there and give you a Bryce Elder, Chris Sale type of start, right? What is he going to do? He's going to give you, 5, maybe 6 innings, limit the damage, maybe allow 1 or 2 runs, and give the bullpen enough of a break and put yourself in a position to come in and succeed. Like ideally, like a good ERA is like a 2 or a 3 ERA. If he's giving up 2 or 3 earned runs per outing, it's not like he's giving up 7 to 8 runs per outing. Like he's doing what he can, and I think Grant Holmes has done similar path to Lee in the sense that he was a first round draft pick, traded to the A's. A's never had enough trust in him to make it to the major league.
They didn't give him a slider. They wouldn't give him a slider.
Nothing, and he was in that system forever.
Yeah.
And then he comes in here, he finds his own, and I think he's doing what he can, to be able to do that. Of course, there's been a couple of times he wishes he's gone deeper to innings, but he's really only made like 1 or 2 bad pitches per game that, unfortunately result in like solo home runs. But I think Grant Holmes, like, I think is a little bit overhated within Braves country. Like he is doing what he's supposed to do. I don't know what else they want from him. Like he's doing what he can.
Yeah, I mean, he has the worst ERA of all 5 of Atlanta starters, and it's still under 4. Like it's a 3.95. Like, you guys take it easy real quick.
Yeah.
You did mention the Spanish speaking thing. I want to touch on that real quick after the break, because I think you have a really interesting perspective that you've been able to bring to the beat in this first month that we haven't really had before. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby joined by Jesus Cano of The Athletic. You are bilingual. And I think one of the changes that we've seen that we haven't really gotten before, shout out Franco Garcia. He's awesome. I love him. But you've given a lot of quotes from players like Ronald and things like that, where you can just talk to them. They don't have to either go into a second language or rely on somebody else to relay their thoughts. And I know that it feels, at least from the outside, like maybe you're getting a little bit more of an unvarnished look into these players from their comments. How often do you run into bilingual players? And I think specifically the native English speakers who have learned Spanish as a second language. Because I feel like in modern baseball, being bilingual, whether you cover it, whether you play, this is almost kind of becoming a prerequisite at this point.
Yeah, so you're asking specifically about players who are native English speakers and tend to learn Spanish?
That's the one that I think we probably don't see enough of, I feel like.
I think they learn phrases and stuff like that. Like when you have guys who've been in the league longer, like I think the other thing too, like a lot of people forget is like when you're, a lot of these guys when they're coming up through the system, it's not just at the major league level, but
they get English classes too.
Baseball. Yeah, but I also got to see this at Baseball America too, in the sense that there's like a lot of the young high schoolers who stay at the complex. I would say like 80 to 90% of the players in the complex league or who are at the complex in general, regardless of the team, are Spanish only players. Like the other 10% are English speaking players. So there's a little bit of familiarity there. But like during my time, like I think what maybe Ben Rice from the Yankees is like one of the best examples to show a guy who can speak fluent Spanish and all that stuff. I remember Mike Sirota, who was a prospect within the Dodgers system, originally drafted by the Reds. I mean, I heard him speaking pretty good Spanish, when I was down in Visalia to watch the Dodgers and the D-backs affiliate plays. But there just isn't that much. Like, I think, they try. I will say they try. It's not like it's like fluent or anything like that, enough to have a conversation. They try, but that's just something you don't see too often. And you don't see too often, like within reporters who have been in the game for a while. Like, yeah. Like, I'm not saying like you should be forced to learn another language, but if I was covering baseball for close to 20, 30 years, and I didn't know how to speak, a little bit of Spanish, like I think it's instrumental. I know some reporters like Jess Camarado, who covers the Nationals for MLB.com. She's a native English speaker and she speaks pretty good Spanish, So I think that's
Trisha Whitaker of Apple TV. She learned Spanish, and I remember her doing an interview with Salvador Perez.
Yeah.
Entirely in Spanish, and it was something she mentioned he was learning, and he's like, we're going to do this at one point in time, and he did it with her. So to your point, it's people are starting to learn, but I think you kind of have a unique skill.
And you see the way with Sophia Minaret from the Brewers, she's bilingual, but you can see when she does post-game interviews with guys in Spanish, she's able to get a more natural reaction from them because they understand the language. They know that she speaks Spanish, and she's also able to translate it on the spot, which I think is just being able to ask the question and do, all that stuff. I think that's really impressive, but it's really something you don't see much. And hopefully, there's also just not even a lot of bilingual, speakers, even if they're a Latino descent. A lot of them are English only, and I'm not trying to knock on anything or anything like that, because it just does come down to circumstance and the way you grew up. I was lucky that my family only spoke Spanish. They didn't know any English. I was the only one in the family to know English, so that gave it. But it would have been a little bit different, like if they were second generation or third generation. I think that's the thing. But it's such a valuable thing to have. Like, I take a lot of pride in it, just because before I was covering baseball, I was covering college sports and high school sports, and really I can only name 2 times when I needed to use my Spanish, and I was in high school when a player on a team scored 4 goals and he only spoke Spanish. And then on another occasion, there was I wrote a profile about the kicker at Fresno State and his Mexican roots, and I talked to his family in Spanish. So I think the moment I arrived to a major league clubhouse and was able to use that right away, I think it definitely does. And it just allows guys to be a lot more comfortable with you. The answers are more natural. Like, like to Ronald's extent, like there was somebody on one of the stories I wrote about in The Athletic about Ronald saying, "Oh, I should not disregard or disrespect, Ronald's ability to speak English and stuff like that." I think that's a bunch of what I'm talking to the guy in his native tongue, and he gives me a much better answer. They've done a good job. Jorge Mateo also speaks pretty solid English, but the answers he's able to give me in Spanish are a lot more natural because it's in his native tongue, and it's something that I really value a lot.
It's definitely an important skill, and I'm glad it's something that you've brought to the beat because, like I said, we've just never really had that here in Atlanta before. Speaking of Atlanta, real quick, you kind of mentioned, I think you said this was one of your first times really spending time in Atlanta, the Battery and all of that. What do you think? What are your thoughts? How have you had the chicken wings? Have you had lemon pepper wet wings yet? Like, what have you done? What have you not done in Atlanta?
See, so I actually came to Atlanta for the first time last year for the Futures game when I was at Baseball America. So when I was doing that, like I got to explore a little bit of it. I actually have distant cousins who live in Gwinnett County, who I barely met last year and knew of because they saw that I was in Atlanta on social media and they reached out to me. Yeah. And I mean, that weekend we went to the aquarium, we walked around Midtown and stuff like that. And it was fun. And so, it was maybe a sign at the time that I didn't realize, but like I've been here now for about a month. I think that I moved in a month ago today into my apartment. And I mean, it's been great. Like I like it so far. Like it's a lot different than Phoenix where I was used to living. I mean, the biggest thing is, unfortunately, the traffic is probably the biggest change.
Wait for the humidity. Wait for the humidity. You think the traffic's bad. Wait for the humidity.
Yeah, that's the one thing I was thinking about. Like last year, like when I was here for the Futures game, like it was very humid. And I thought to myself, I was like, I would prefer the dry heat in Arizona over this. But we'll see how it goes. But I mean, I've liked it so far. Obviously, like I've been here for a month, but I've been gone for half of that time. The other half I'm at the ballpark, and like, for example, like an off day yesterday where I traveled on Sunday and came home, I just wanted to stay in all day. I was trying to get myself to go to the College Football Hall of Fame. But I was just, wanted to take the time to just relax and catch up with Zoe really quick. But I mean, I like it so far. I think the one thing I do enjoy about it being so far is the fact that there's a lot of pride in the baseball team. And it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say probably the Braves are maybe the most followed professional sports team here. I feel like UGA would probably take over. That's why I said professional, not college. But I think right. The way that I see it everywhere, like when I was in Phoenix, like nobody cared about the D-backs. Like, to be honest, like I'm being upfront. Like there was no reason for there to still be an Angel spring training advertisement at the bus stop next to where I live when I left Phoenix when I did. Like there should be no reason for that. There was not as many D-backs hats and stuff like that. And a lot of that has to do with the franchise is young. It's like maybe 27, 28 years old. There's not a lot of generational fans. And it's also a big transplant city. Like there's a lot of people from the Midwest that moved there, a lot of people from California that moved there because it's a much more affordable option. Like it's just the victim of circumstance, right? I'm not trying to knock on D-backs fans because they are passionate, but there's just not as much as a following as there here is in Atlanta. Like in Atlanta, like when I was driving from Phoenix to here, driving through Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, there was a lot of Braves stuff. I was in Braves country, and I've never seen it that much. Like, like I grew up in the Bay Area where it was, Giants predominantly took over. But there was a lot of A stuff. Like I've never been in an area where there's been maybe outside of maybe the Dodgers where you could clearly see it there. Where it's been heavily dominated by the baseball team. Like the Walmart down the street from where I live has a whole section of Brave stuff and not just like a rack on the shelf, like a whole section with merch, with hats, with barbecue stuff for the games and stuff like that. I'm like, wow, this is fantastic. Like that makes me really excited. But it's been great so far. Like when I do go out, I go out to the Battery just because I live, within walking distance of the Battery. So that's kind of like closer to me. But as I'm getting to know more people and stuff like that, especially a lot of the TV guys, they're helping me push, a lot of the TV news guys are helping me, find my way and stuff like that too. So looking forward to maybe doing more like this Sunday and Monday, because I'm off on Sunday and then it's an off day on Monday for once. So I get back-to-back off days where I don't have to work out the game. So I'll definitely be trying to see. I'll definitely go to the College Football Hall of Fame. But if anybody watching the show or you have any recommendations, let me know.
They will jump in the comments and they will let you know definitely what to do. Yeah. I can't speak too much for a lot of the TV guys. I've chatted with them a little bit, like Zach and then, Brandon and CJ and all that. But I feel like the beat guys, whether it's Chad Bishop, whether it's Grant McCauley, guys like that, there's a big interest in pro wrestling in the Braves press box. And I know you're a fan as well. I also watch, my daughter's 10 and she's starting to really enjoy watching the women's matches and luchador matches and things like that. Is that common that you see that a lot when you're in other press boxes, that like wrestling's a thing, or is it our press box is kind of unique that like, I remember sitting in the press box one weekend and like, I think Grant was streaming WrestleMania while he was in the press box before the game started.
I was at WrestleMania. I was at the one in Vegas this past
year. Okay, there you go. Nice.
It's very unique for sure. For sure. I know it's just Grant in the press box right now, but that's like more than anybody else I would have imagined, right?
Yeah.
But like another
Chad's dropped the references to like older. I don't know if he watches currently. He's dropped references to the older wrestling stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, I see Chad more than I've seen my own family this year. We haven't talked about his. I know Bo recently talked about he opened up his newsletter talking about Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair.
Right.
I was like, dude, like that is just like, I would not have expected that out of you. We've never talked about wrestling once, and then you're talking about one of the best Georgia rivalries of all time in your newsletter. But I don't think within other press boxes, it's not really that's the case. Like I think my good friend Martin Gallegos, who covers the A's, is a big wrestling fan, and Kyle Williams, who covers the Nationals for the Baltimore Banner, is a big wrestling guy too. Jalen Thompson covers the Royals for the Kansas City Stars, a big wrestling guy. But like it's not as common as you might think. It's also really not as common to see like within players to be big wrestling fans. I will say the Reds, Emilio Pagan, big wrestling fan, and then I heard Sam Mole come out to Trick Williams' theme this past weekend in Cincinnati. So whenever I hear something like that, I'm like, oh wow! I was like, it like makes me feel something. It's like, why is nobody else popping right now? This is insane. Why is nobody chanting "whoop that trick" right now? I know there's also like a player on the Yankees, and I don't know who, but he comes out to Cody Rhodes' theme. I don't know who it is, but I've seen clips of it before show up on TikTok and stuff like that of him warming up, but I've never been able to see who the player is. So I don't know. Like
I'm trying to find who it is. Yeah. I feel like I've seen that as well, and I just can't quite remember who it is. I've seen the video of them playing it at Yankee Stadium.
Like, fortunately for me, like when I was growing up an A's fan, Josh Reddick was on the team, and Josh Reddick was a big WWE fan. Like I can remember him coming out to Daniel Bryan's team, Seth Rollins' first team when he was the architect. He came out to Ryback's team. Like he came out to a lot of different
rotating through. Yeah.
Yeah. When Roddy Piper passed away, he used Roddy Piper's theme. He used the Ultimate Warrior theme when he passed away. So I was really happy to see that, because it's just a crossover you don't see quite nearly as much. And to just have that, like it's been fun. It's been certainly fun to do.
Yeah, and it sounds like it. I want to get your thoughts real quick before we get out of here. I've already kept you long enough. The El Grande Americano mask versus mask match we saw in AAA. It was on Saturday night. I think we were DMing. We both watched it on Sunday. Or maybe it was Monday for you. I don't remember. What were your thoughts? I thought the match was really well done. I was amazed at how well, if you haven't watched, spoiler alert, I was amazed at like how well Chad Gable was received after the match was over.
Yeah.
And it was probably match of the year that I've seen so far.
I think it's like one of the best matches like I think WWE has put up since maybe the NXT Black and Gold days. Like that.
Ooh, okay.
Which is crazy. This is crazy because this would have been a typical match on NXT Black and Gold in 2017 to 2019, which is funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the storyline, I mean, just everything this is, we got to remember that's a storyline that just happened to happen because Chad Gable got injured, and whoever the real Grande Americano is,
whoever he is,
just took really well to the character and everything that's gone into it. And obviously everything that happened, the past week or so leading up to it, like there was so many stories within the match. And I think it set up for a lot of stories down the road. I think to me, like what was the best part of the match was when, they had, the OG Grande Americano had the other Grande Americano against the ropes, and then they bring down Andrea Bazarte, his girlfriend, and to me,
she had a ticket. She had a ticket.
Exactly. To me,
that's throw her out.
The story. I'm like, oh my god, like this is so good. Like that's like you can. I feel like a lot of people were able to relate to that. It just takes one person to be seen to motivate you to be able to do that, and the ending of it was so good. And like you mentioned too, like I think it was nice to see like Chad's family there. That's something I didn't expect. And like one thing I noted too was like I saw his son was fold out in the Grande Americano mask, and then when Chad took it off, his son took it off. Yeah. I don't know how many people caught that, but I was like, dude, that's a really good note. That's an interesting note. They did it like a traditional, unmasking in Mexico, which I think was nice. And yeah, I mean, this builds up so many stories. It's like, what direction does, not only does El Grande Americano go in AAA, but also now in WWE now that he's the only Grande Americano, is this something that's going to be a forever thing for the person playing the character, and also things like what happens to Chad Gable in that direction too. Like they've obviously said that he's going to come back to AAA at some point. I think he's going to do great work, but now that, he was gone for quite a long time, what's it going to look like now when he's, back on the main roster? I think there's so many avenues as you go back to, what he was doing with the Creed brothers and Ivy Nile, is there a potential opening for him to go somewhere like the Vision? Like, I think he's due.
I hadn't thought of that.
He's due for something. I think he's due for something big like this. You go back to like the match he had with where he missed out on WrestleMania because he lost to Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn went on to win the Intercontinental title, and a lot of people were pushing for him, and he's been such a huge role player. He's been truly a guy that's just turned something up to nothing, because even going back, like he was a tag team guy with Jason Jordan. Jason Jordan has that freak neck injury that, like nobody it has never been officially announced, by the way. He just disappeared one day and started showing up as a producer, and jumps in between a bunch of different tag teams. Every now and then was with Shelton Benjamin, and here and there the Shorty G gimmick, was maybe a death sentence to him, and he was able to fight through it. Like he's due for something big. And it's going to be interesting to see the direction they go in.
Yeah, he's a very good technical wrestler in that Kurt Angle style, that, channeling that Greco-Roman wrestling background. And I needed to do something. Go ahead.
And good on the mic.
Oh yeah. He cuts good promos. And I think that he's got everything that he has the physique, he has the move set, he has, the aura, he has the promos, everything that you would think they would want to push. And that in maybe under the previous management, they would have pushed really hard. And so I'm curious to see where he goes from here. And then the only El Grande Americano, just knowing about how much he's embraced Mexico off, out of the ring, right? I mean, he speaks very good Spanish now, which a lot of people who are from Europe originally, as I've heard El Grande Americano could be, I feel like are really good with multiple languages. He probably had a little, but just
speak English or German.
Yeah. Like just really good, really, really well done. The fact that they played it after Raw on Monday night tells me that, like, okay, maybe they didn't even realize it was going to be this good. And they had they brought it off of YouTube to Netflix and all the US viewers. So
shout out Taker, man. Shout out Taker.
Listen, but like him, and then now you have he's booking for AAA, and then you brought in a new GM. I don't know how much of that is actual GM. I didn't think he was great on commentary.
He's never been great on the mic.
I was like, I love Rey Mysterio. I love having him part of it. He was not great on the mic in the match.
He's a good GM.
He's a good GM. He's a good GM. He's not great. He's not great on commentary or on the microphone and all of that. But still, it was tons of fun.
I listened to it in Spanish, so
of course you did. Yeah, I was trying to translate through using my phone during the match, or post match and all of that. So
I think Conan, Corey Graves, and I think JBL are they're a good team.
Yeah, Corey's underrated because he doesn't host his own show on the standard TV, right? He's paired with somebody who dominates the thing, but he's underrated as an announcer and being able to kind of guide the emotions and the reactions throughout. So I think it's good call out by you there on that.
Yeah, his brother, I think, is a legendary wrestler in Mexico. I think it's Sam Adonis is his brother. Now I'm going to the wrestling cuts right now.
I didn't think I remembered that. Sam Adonis is his. I forgot that was his brother. So there you go. Okay, there we go. See, it just shows that you're even deeper cutting than I am, and I'm sure most of the listeners are already tuned out. But listen, this is what we do. At the end of every Beat Writer episode, we go into something random. So this is just what happens. Thanks for being on. Thanks for letting me take so much of your time. It was longer than I think I intended or told you about. Where can Braves fans, Braves Today listeners go to make these suggestions on what to go do in town, follow you and your work?
Yeah, so obviously I work for The Athletic, which is owned by the New York Times. So if anybody wants to go out and buy a subscription, they always have deals happening for the appreciated. Yep. They always have, deals going on where it's like $1 for the first whatever months. I don't know what the deal is specifically, but there. My Twitter is _Jesus Cano 88. That's my Twitter right there. And then I do have a media Instagram that I use, which is by Jesus Cano. So BY Jesus Cano. That's where I post like a lot of Brave stuff. There's, oftentimes, I'll post stories there that don't require a paywall, which is for, people, I try to sneak in whenever I can. I also sometimes put videos and stories of, what's going on behind the scenes and stuff like that there too, to just grow the following a little bit. And those are the two platforms that I use. If anybody ever has any story suggestions or ideas, I'm pretty sure my DMs are open, but also, my email is jcano@theathletic.com, which I check daily to see what type of, just stuff, for work and, hoping to hear from the fans and stuff like that. Would love to hear story ideas. Would love to hear recommendations or just any questions to answer. Like, I'm more than happy. Like, I really want to be a reporter who is for the fans at the end of the day, because the fans are who, read my stuff. They're who subscribe. They're who, I cater to them as much as I can while keeping an integrity. And I want to be that voice for Braves country, to write the stories that they want and, give them the coverage that they deserve, because I truly appreciate, the welcoming support I've had from them. And also just, they're serious about baseball and I'm serious about baseball. So if any way I can contribute, I will 100% do it.
There we go. That'll do it for Braves Today for Thursday, June 4th. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time on Braves Today.